My name is Lauren Pierce, and I learned how fast a town can turn. I was away for 1 week on a work trip, and I left my 12-year-old daughter, Mia Pierce, with my parents, Frank Pierce and Diane Pierce. They insisted it would be good for family bonding, and they promised they could handle everything. I believed them because I wanted my daughter to have grandparents who felt safe. I did not know that a single missing item could become a public trial. 3 days into my trip, my phone started lighting up with messages from neighbors. The first one asked if Mia was okay, and the next one asked why she would steal. My stomach dropped so hard it felt like falling. I called my mother, and Diane answered with a tight voice. She said it was nothing. Then she said Mia had been caught taking something that did not belong to her. I asked what she was talking about, and Diane said my niece, Addison Reed, had lost her dance shoes. Addison is my sister Tanya Reed daughter, and in my parents' house, Addison is treated like a tiny celebrity. Diane said the shoes were expensive, and Addison had a performance coming, and now the whole week was ruined. I asked who decided Mia stole them, and Diane snapped that Mia has always been jealous, and she has always had an attitude. I told her that was not proof, and Diane said she did not need proof. She said Mia looked guilty, and that was enough. Then Frank took the phone, and his voice was colder than I remembered. He said I raised Mia to be disrespectful, and now she needed consequences. I asked where Mia was, and he said she was in her room, and she was grounded. I could hear a muffled sound in the background, like my daughter trying not to cry. I told them to stop, and to call the school, and to keep this private. Frank replied that Mia needed to learn shame, because shame teaches respect. Then he said something that made my blood turn hot. He said he already told the dance studio, and he already told a few parents, so people would watch their things. I hung up and stared at my hotel wall, feeling helpless and furious. I called Mia, and she answered in a small voice. She said, "Mom, everyone thinks I am a thief, and I did not do it." I stayed on the phone with Mia Pierce, trying to keep my voice steady. She whispered that Grandma Diane Pierce told her to confess, even though she did nothing. Mia said Grandpa Frank Pierce searched her backpack and her dresser and her closet. He did it like a police officer, not a grandfather. Mia told me Addison Reed cried loudly, and Tanya Reed kept saying, "This is what happens when you let a jealous kid near your things." My chest felt tight with anger, and I asked Mia if anyone listened to her at all. She said no. They only told her to stop lying. Then my phone buzzed, and it was the school office. The receptionist spoke politely, but the words hit like ice. She said there were concerns about a missing item, and several parents had called. She asked if Mia had anything to share, because the dance program and the after-school clubs were being affected. I told her Mia did not steal anything, and I asked who started this rumor. The receptionist hesitated, then said Frank and Diane visited earlier and spoke to staff, and they seemed very confident. I felt my face burn. I told the receptionist I would return that night, and I asked her to keep Mia safe from any public confrontation. After the call, I contacted the dance studio director directly. She sounded uncomfortable and said the shoes were important, and Addison had been crying. I told her I understood, but blaming a child without proof is unacceptable. The director said Frank Pierce told her Mia has a history of stealing small things. That lie made my stomach twist. Mia has never stolen anything, not once. I realized Frank and Diane were not just disciplining, they were building a story. I called Diane again, and she answered like she was proud. She said people need to know who Mia really is. I told her she was destroying a child reputation over a pair of shoes. Diane replied that consequences build character. Frank took the phone and said if I had raised Mia better, this would not happen. I told him to stop speaking to the school, and he said it was too late. He said everyone in town already heard, and now Mia will learn respect. I ended the call, and I booked the earliest flight home. In my hotel room, I packed in silence, and I kept thinking about one thing. Shame was never their goal, control was. And they used my daughter as the tool. I landed late, drove straight from the airport, and my hands shook on the steering wheel. When I pulled into my parents' driveway, the porch light was on, and the house looked calm, like nothing was burning inside. Diane Pierce opened the door before I knocked, as if she was waiting for a fight. She started talking immediately, saying Mia had been difficult, and she refused to cooperate. I walked past her and called Mia name. Mia appeared at the top of the stairs, eyes red, shoulders pulled inward. She came down slowly, like she was afraid of making noise. I hugged her, and I felt her body relax for 1 second. Then tense again, like she expected punishment for being comforted. Frank Pierce stepped into the living room and said I was making Mia soft. He said softness is why kids steal. I looked at him and asked where the proof was. Frank said the proof is common sense, because Addison Reed would never lie. Tanya Reed sat on the couch, arms crossed, watching me like I was the enemy. Addison stood behind her, face buried in a sweatshirt, making small sniffing sounds. Diane said Mia refused to confess, and she will not be allowed to leave until she does. I told Diane that Mia is coming home with me tonight. Diane said over my dead body, and Frank said the house rules apply. I told them Mia is my child, and I decide. Frank stepped closer and said, then you can explain to the town why your daughter is a thief. Mia flinched at the word thief, and my anger turned cold. I asked Tanya where the shoes were last seen. Tanya said in the guest room, and Addison needed them for rehearsal. I asked if anyone searched the guest room properly, or if they only searched Mia. Diane said they searched everything, but her tone was too quick. I walked upstairs anyway, and I opened closets and drawers. Not because I believed Mia, but because I needed to show them I cared about truth. In the corner of the guest room, behind a stack of costume bags, I found a small shoebox. It was tucked under a robe, like someone shoved it there in a hurry. Inside were the dance shoes, clean and untouched. I stood there for a second, holding the box, feeling my heartbeat in my throat. Then I carried the box downstairs and placed it on the coffee table. The room went silent. Addison looked up fast, eyes wide. Tanya blinked, then said that does not prove anything. Frank stared at the box, jaw tight, and Diane face turned stiff. Mia whispered, I told you. And her voice was so small it broke something in me. Addison Reed started crying again, but it sounded different now. Tanya Reed pulled her close and asked how the shoes got there. Addison said she did not know. Then she looked at the floor, then she whispered that she might have put them there. She said she was rushing, and she was scared of missing rehearsal. She said she forgot, and then everyone started saying Mia took them, so she stayed quiet. Diane Pierce snapped that Addison is just confused, and that Mia still acted suspicious. Frank Pierce said Mia should apologize for causing stress. Hearing that, I realized they were willing to sacrifice truth to keep authority. I asked Frank if he was going to apologize for calling Mia a thief to the school. Frank said he did what any responsible adult would do. Diane said Mia should have spoken up sooner, as if a child could shout over adults determined to condemn her. Mia stood beside me, hands clenched, cheeks wet, staring at the carpet like it was safer than faces. I told Diane that you told teachers, parents, and the dance studio, and you did it without proof. Diane said it was a lesson, and lessons are not always pleasant. I told her the lesson you taught is that family can ruin you, then call it love. Tanya tried to shift blame, saying the town gossip spreads fast, and nobody can control it. I told her you started it, then you enjoyed it. Frank then said if I challenge him in his own home, I will not be welcome. I told him that is fine, because Mia will not be welcome where she is humiliated. Diane said, Mia needs to learn respect for elders. I replied that respect does not mean accepting lies. Then I asked the question that made the air change. I asked who will call the school tomorrow and who will correct the story in front of everyone. Diane looked away. Frank said, people will forget. I told him that a child does not forget being labeled a thief. Mia looked up at me, eyes pleading, like she wanted to believe I could fix it. I promised her I would. I told Frank and Diane that if they do not correct it, I will. Frank said, do what you want, but you will make it worse. I said, it is already worse, and you did that. I took Mia's hand, and we walked to the door. Tanya called after me, saying you are overreacting. I did not turn around. In the car, Mia asked if everyone at school will hate her. I told her no, and I meant it. I said we will tell the truth. We will demand correction, and we will not let adults hide behind pride. The next morning, I walked Mia Pierce into school with my head high. Mia held my hand tighter than usual, and I could feel her fear through her fingers. People stared, not loudly, but enough. A parent near the entrance turned away fast, like guilt looked contagious. I asked the front office for the principal, and I requested a meeting immediately. The receptionist recognized my name, and her face tightened. She said there were concerns, and I said that is why I am here. In the office, I explained the full timeline. The missing dance shoes, the search, the accusations, and the discovery of the shoes in the guest room. I told them Frank Pierce and Diane Pierce had spread a claim without proof, and it harmed a child. The principal listened, then asked if I had evidence. I showed a photo of the shoebox as I found it, and I showed messages from Diane where she called it a lesson. The principal exhaled and said this should have been handled privately. I agreed, and I said my parents refused privacy, so now we need correction. The dance program director joined the meeting, and she looked uncomfortable. She admitted Frank told her Mia had a history of stealing. I told her that was false, and I asked her to help correct it. The director hesitated, then nodded, because she could see Mia on the line. We agreed on a plan. The school would address staff, the program would send a short note to parents, and Mia would not be punished for a rumor. When I walked Mia to her classroom, she looked smaller than her backpack. I told her to focus on her work, and I told her she is not what they said. At pickup, Mia told me 2 girls whispered thief when she walked by. My jaw tightened, but I kept my voice calm. I told Mia that whispers fade when truth is loud. That night, I called the school again to confirm the correction message would go out. Then I called my parents. Frank answered and said this is over. I told him it is not over, because you started it. I said you will either correct it publicly, or I will. Frank laughed and said nobody will listen to you. I told him I already met with the principal, and the truth is already moving. Then I hung up, because I was done asking permission. That evening, after Mia Pierce fell asleep, I sat at my kitchen table and made a call I had avoided for years. I called Caleb Monroe, the attorney who handled my grandfather's estate matters. I did not call to threaten my parents. I called to protect my child. Caleb answered with a professional voice, then softened when he heard my name. He asked what happened, and I told him the short version. My parents accused my daughter of stealing, then told the whole town. Caleb paused, then asked a question that surprised me. He asked if Frank Pierce and Diane Pierce had ever mentioned the trust. My stomach dropped, because I remembered whispers from years ago, something about my grandfather leaving provisions for the next generation. I asked Caleb what he meant. Caleb said he could not disclose details without authorization, but he could confirm that there were legal instruments involving Mia Day. He said he always expected the family would handle it responsibly. I told him responsibility is not what I am seeing. Caleb asked if I suspected they were using the thief label for leverage. Hearing that phrase made the room feel colder. Caleb explained that certain trusts include conduct language, and public allegations of theft can be used to question a minor character and to control who manages funds. I felt anger surge, because it meant my parents might be playing a deeper game. Caleb told me to send him documentation of the false accusation and the correction efforts. He said if this escalated, he could issue a formal notice requiring retraction, and he could request that communication go through counsel. After the call, I sat in silence, replaying Frank's words about shame teaching respect. It sounded less like discipline now, and more like a strategy. I thought about Diane insisting she did not need proof. That arrogance looked like entitlement, not concern. I looked at my sleeping daughter, and I promised myself I would not let anyone build a case against her character for their own gain. The next morning, Caleb emailed me a checklist, screenshots, messages, witnesses, and timelines. He wrote one sentence that made my blood run cold. He said, "This is not just gossip. This is reputational harm to a child, and it can have legal consequences." 2 days later, the school sent a short correction note. It was careful, but it helped. It said the missing item was found, and there was no evidence of wrongdoing by Mia Pierce. Some parents responded with apologies. Others stayed silent. Mia told me the whispers slowed, but the looks still hurt. I decided to go one step further. I asked Frank Pierce and Diane Pierce to meet me at the community center, with Tanya Reed present. I wanted them to correct the lie in front of witnesses, including a few parents from the dance program. Frank arrived angry, and Diane arrived polished, wearing a smile like armor. Tanya came with Addison Reed, who looked embarrassed and small. I asked Frank to say one sentence. Mia did not steal, and I was wrong to say she did. Frank refused. He said people already made up their minds, and Mia should learn to live with consequences. Diane said this is making the family look bad, and I should stop. I told them that Mia's reputation is not a price you can pay for pride. Tanya tried to blame Addison, then tried to blame stress. Addison finally whispered that she found the shoes, and she did not know how to admit it. Diane snapped at her to be quiet. The room shifted, because people saw it. The control, the silencing, the arrogance. One parent asked Diane why she told the studio Mia had a history. Diane said she heard it from somewhere. I asked where, and she had no answer. Frank then tried to flip the story, saying I am attacking elders. Caleb Monroe stepped forward, because I had invited him quietly as a witness. Caleb introduced himself, and said he represents the interests of a minor who has been defamed. Frank's face tightened. Diane's eyes widened slightly, and she looked around like she wanted an exit. Caleb said a formal retraction is required, and further false statements could lead to action. Frank called it a threat. Caleb called it a boundary. I watched my parents realize the town stage they built could also hold consequences. As we left, Mia squeezed my hand and whispered, "Thank you." I looked at her and said, "This is what protection looks like. It is not quiet, and it is not comfortable, but it is real." After the community center meeting, Diane Pierce went quiet for 2 days. Then she started calling relatives, trying to frame me as unstable. A cousin texted that Diane said Lauren Pierce was attacking the family over a childish misunderstanding. That word, misunderstanding, made my jaw clench. Mia Pierce did not misunderstand anything. She was publicly labeled a thief. Caleb Monroe advised me to stop answering family chatter and focus on documents. He said gossip dies faster when it cannot feed on reactions. Meanwhile, something unexpected happened. Tanya Reed called me, late at night, voice tight, and said Addison Reed was crying. Tanya said Addison admitted she found the shoes days earlier, and Diane told her to stay quiet. Tanya said Diane insisted the story already spread, and correcting it would make Diane look foolish. Hearing that made my stomach drop, because it confirmed what I suspected. This was never about shoes, it was about control and image. Tanya asked what she should do now. I told her to do one thing: tell the truth publicly, the same way the lie was spread. Tanya hesitated, then said Frank would explode. I told her Frank already exploded, and a child already suffered. The next morning, Tanya sent a message to the dance studio director and the school. She admitted the shoes were found in the guest room, and there was no theft. She did not apologize fully, but she acknowledged the fact. That small shift mattered. At rehearsal, the director spoke briefly to the parents, clarifying that Mia was not responsible. Mia told me later that a few kids looked shocked, like they finally realized they were wrong. Still, Mia felt cautious. because trust does not snap back instantly. That evening, Addison texted Mia an apology. It was short and messy, but it was real. Addison wrote that she was scared, and she froze, and she was sorry. Mia showed me the message and asked if she had to forgive. I told her she does not have to do anything that feels unsafe. She can accept an apology without inviting someone into her life. Mia nodded, and for the first time in days, she smiled slightly. I realized that truth was finally pushing through, not because my parents chose it, but because kids were braver than the adults around them. Caleb Monroe called me into his office the following week. He said we needed to discuss the trust issue carefully. Caleb explained that my grandfather created a structure meant to protect grandchildren, including Mia Pierce. He said there were clear terms about management and a preference for responsible oversight. Caleb said Frank Pierce and Diane Pierce were supposed to notify me years ago, but they did not. He also said that public allegations of theft, even false ones, can be weaponized to argue that a child environment is unstable, and therefore management should remain with the grandparents. When I heard that, my hands went cold. Mia's reputation was not collateral for their pride. It was a tool for their control. Caleb said he could not accuse them without proof, but the timing and behavior were concerning. He asked me to describe how Frank and Diane reacted when the shoes were found. I told him they did not apologize, and they demanded Mia apologize for stress. Caleb wrote it down, then said that pattern matters. Caleb said we would issue a formal demand for retraction from Frank and Diane, and a notice that any further defamation would be met with action. He also said we would request trust documents through the proper process, so the information could no longer be hidden behind vague family claims. I asked Caleb what this means for Mia. Caleb said it means Mia's future is protected by law, not by grandparents' moods. He said your job is to protect her emotionally, and my job is to protect her legally. I left his office feeling shaken, but also empowered. For the first time, I could see the full picture. Frank and Diane were not just cruel, they were strategic. And that meant my response had to be strategic too. The week after my post, Diane Pierce tried to repair her image without repairing the damage. She showed up at Mia Pierce School during lunch, smiling too wide, telling staff she wanted to check on her granddaughter. The office called me first, because my statement had already made people cautious. I told them Diane could not see Mia without my permission, and I asked them to document the attempt. Diane then went to the dance studio, claiming she came to apologize. The director called me again, and I could hear discomfort in her voice. I drove there after work, and I found Diane in the lobby, speaking loudly to two parents, saying she only wanted peace, and Lauren Pierce was making everything dramatic. I stepped in and told Diane to stop. Diane said she was trying to fix it, and I asked her one direct question. I asked her if she was ready to say out loud that Mia did not steal anything. Diane hesitated, eyes flicking to the parents watching. Then she said the shoes were found, but Mia's attitude still caused stress. I felt my stomach turn. I told Diane that a child attitude is not evidence, and stress is not a crime. The director stepped forward and said there will be no more gossip inside this studio. Diane smiled tightly and said she understood. Then she tried to touch Mia's shoulder when Mia walked out of rehearsal. Mia stepped back, face closing, and my heart broke again. I told Diane she lost the right to casual contact when she labeled my daughter a thief. Diane started crying, saying she was overwhelmed, and she did not mean for it to spread. I reminded her that Frank Pierce told the town on purpose, and she supported it. Diane whispered that Frank does what he wants, and I said then you should have protected the child, not the pride. That night, Caleb Monroe sent Diane and Frank a formal demand, requiring a written retraction to the school, the studio, and any person they contacted. The demand also required them to stop repeating the thief claim in any form. Diane called me after receiving it, voice shaking, asking if I really want to do this. I told her I already did it, when I left my daughter in your care for 1 week, and you chose humiliation. Then I hung up, because my boundaries are not a debate. When Caleb Monroe sent the formal letter, Frank Pierce reacted exactly as expected. He called me furious, saying I embarrassed him in front of the town. He said lawyers are for strangers, not family. I told him family does not destroy a child's reputation. Frank said I was ungrateful, and he threatened to tell everyone I was chasing inheritance. I told him to say whatever he wants, because the truth is documented now. Diane Pierce tried a softer approach, leaving a voicemail that sounded almost kind. She said she missed Mia, and she wanted peace. Then she slipped in a warning, saying people are talking about my attitude, and I should calm down. I did not reply. Caleb advised me to keep all communication in writing. The school offered Mia additional support, and one teacher apologized for assuming guilt. Mia told me she still felt eyes on her in the hallway, but she also said a few classmates started sitting with her again. That mattered more than any adult pride. Then the town tried to do what small towns do. It tried to make the target disappear. A parent at the dance studio suggested Mia should switch programs to avoid tension. I looked at her and said no. I said Mia will not be the one to leave, because she did nothing wrong. The director backed me up, and she said the studio will not tolerate bullying. That evening, I posted a short statement online, not emotional, just facts. I wrote that the shoes were found, Mia did not steal, and false accusations harmed a child. I asked people to stop spreading rumors. Some neighbors responded with support. Others stayed silent. Frank called it betrayal. I called it protection. Mia read the post and asked if people would hate us. I told her some people will always prefer gossip, because it is easier than admitting they were wrong. But the right people will choose truth. Mia nodded, and she held my hand, and I could feel her trust strengthening, slowly, like a bone healing. Frank Pierce did not apologize. He escalated. He started telling people that I was using Mia Pierce to attack the family, and that I wanted money. He said Caleb Monroe was part of my scheme, and he told neighbors that I was trying to steal what was not mine. Caleb warned me this was coming, because defamation often turns into retaliation when consequences appear. Caleb advised me to stop talking to Frank directly and to route everything through counsel. I followed that advice, because arguing with a man who needs to win is like shouting into wind. Caleb sent Frank a second letter, shorter and sharper. It stated that repeating false theft allegations about a minor after correction is defamation. It also stated that contacting school staff to spread that claim could trigger further legal action. Frank tried to bluff, calling Caleb and demanding to know what authority he had. Caleb answered calmly and said he represents a minor interest that Frank has harmed publicly. Frank then threatened to go to the local paper, and Caleb said you are welcome to, and we are welcome to respond with documentation. That sentence changed the temperature. Frank likes a stage, but he does not like receipts. Meanwhile, Mia came home one afternoon with a note from a teacher. The teacher wrote that Mia was doing well, but there was lingering social tension. I sat with Mia at the kitchen table, and I asked what she needed. Mia said she wanted to stop feeling watched. I told her that what she feels is normal after public shame, and it will fade with time and truth. We made a plan with the school counselor, small check-ins, a safe office if Mia felt overwhelmed, and permission to step out of class briefly. Mia did not want special treatment. She wanted dignity. I told her dignity is exactly what we are fighting for. That night, Caleb called and said he obtained preliminary trust information through proper channels. He said there were indeed provisions tied to Mia, and Frank and Diane were obligated to disclose them. Caleb said we would request a formal accounting and ensure no one could use rumors to control access. I looked at my daughter sleeping, and I felt a cold clarity. Frank did not want Mia punished for stealing. He wanted Mia marked as untrustworthy. And now we were removing his ability to do that. Caleb Monroe scheduled a meeting in his office, and he invited Frank Pierce and Diane Pierce, with Tanya Reed present as a witness. I brought Mia Pierce only to the waiting room, because I did not want her inside adult conflict. Caleb opened by stating facts. The shoes were found. The school issued a correction, the studio clarified, and the theft claim is false. Frank tried to argue that Mia still has a dishonest vibe, and Caleb stopped him. Caleb said vibes are not evidence, and continuing to imply theft is harmful. Diane looked down, hands clasped, and she whispered that she never wanted it to go this far. Caleb asked why she did it then. Diane said Frank insisted, and the town needed to know. Tanya shifted in her chair, and she finally spoke. Tanya said Addison Reed told her Diane instructed her to stay quiet after the shoes were found. Diane flinched, and Frank snapped that Addison is a child and cannot be trusted. Caleb asked Frank if a child cannot be trusted. Why was a child accusation trusted enough to destroy Mia's name? Frank had no good answer, so he moved to anger. He said Lauren is ungrateful, and he said I am turning the family into a courtroom. Caleb replied that Frank turned it into a courtroom when he turned a rumor into a public verdict. Then Caleb presented the demand, a written retraction signed by Frank and Diane, sent to the school, the studio, and any parent they contacted. Frank refused at first, saying he will not admit wrongdoing. Caleb slid a document across the table and said, "Then we proceed." He said there are options including a civil claim for reputational harm to a minor, and a request for trust oversight to protect Mia from manipulation. Diane started crying, not for Mia, but for the fear of consequence. Tanya looked at Diane and said, "You hurt a child to protect your pride." The room went quiet. Frank stared at the papers like they were poison. Then he asked if signing would make this stop. Caleb said signing is the beginning, not the end. He said the end is behavior change, and silence about Mia character. Frank finally signed, jaw tight, eyes hard. Diane signed too, trembling. When we walked out, Mia looked up at me and asked if it is over. I told her the lie is over, and we will keep building her safety. I held her hand and felt something steady. The town could whisper, but it could not erase the truth anymore. The retraction went out the next day, delivered to the school, the dance studio, and to the parents Frank Pierce and Diane Pierce had contact. It was short, stiff, and clearly written by someone who hated admitting fault. It stated that the dance shoes were found, and that Mia Pierce did not steal them. The principal called me to confirm it was received, and the dance director posted a brief clarification for the program. The town did what towns do. Some people apologized quietly, some pretended they never believed the rumor, and some stayed loyal to the first story because it made their world feel simple. Mia told me the whispers changed. Instead of thief, she heard people say that was messed up, or I cannot believe adults did that. It helped, but it did not erase the week she spent shrinking. One afternoon, a classmate slipped Mia a note that said, "Sorry, I should have asked you." Mia brought it home and stared at it for a long time. She asked me why people believed it so fast. I told her the truth. Some people trust authority more than evidence, and some people love gossip because it makes them feel included. I also told her that truth matters even when it arrives late, because it teaches the right people who to be. Caleb Monroe kept moving behind the scenes, requesting full trust documentation and confirming that Frank and Diane were obligated to disclose anything involving Mia Torrell. Caleb said the process takes time, but the direction is clear. Frank tried one more time to call me directly, leaving a voicemail that sounded like a warning wrapped in sweetness. He said, "We corrected it, so you can stop now." I did not reply. Caleb replied for me, stating that further contact would be documented, and that compliance does not buy access. Diane tried to send Mia a gift, a small bracelet with a note about family love. Mia asked if she had to wear it. I told her she could decide, and she said she wanted it in a drawer, not on her body. That answer broke my heart, and it also made me proud. She was learning boundaries early, the way I never did. That night, I sat with Mia and made a simple plan for healing. Counseling at school, safe friends, and permission to speak up when she feels watched. I told her one sentence until she believed it. I said, "You are not what they called you. You are who you choose to be." A month later, life did not look perfect. but it looked steady. Mia Pierce returned fully to her clubs, and she began laughing again in a way that sounded like herself. The dance director asked Mia to stay in the program, and she offered Mia a small role in the next showcase, not as pity, but as affirmation. The principal told me the staff received guidance on handling rumors and on protecting students from adult interference. It was not justice for every bruise, but it was a line drawn in the right place. Frank Pierce and Diane Pierce stayed quieter because the town now knew they could be wrong, and being wrong scared them more than being cruel ever did. Tanya Reid kept her distance from the drama, and Addison Reid stopped acting like a star when she learned that attention can burn. Caleb Monroe confirmed that the trust documentation was secured, and he said Frank and Diane would have limited ability to manipulate it moving forward. He said the law cannot heal feelings, but it can prevent power plays. Mia asked me one night if Grandma and Grandpa loved her. I answered carefully, because children deserve honesty that does not crush them. I told her some people love in a way that is selfish, and some people love in a way that is safe. I told her our job is to choose safe love every time. Mia nodded, then asked if we still have family. I told her yes, we have each other, and we have people who protect truth. I watched her face relax, like that answer landed where fear used to sit. One afternoon, I saw Diane at the grocery store. She looked at Mia, then looked away. Frank did not come near us. I did not chase them, and I did not flinch. Mia squeezed my hand and kept walking, and that was the real ending. A town can whisper, and adults can misuse authority, but a mother who stands firm can change the story. My parents tried to brand my child with shame, and they failed because truth was louder than pride when it finally had a voice. The lesson stayed with me in a simple sentence. If someone can ruin a child with a lie, then I can protect her with facts, boundaries, and love that does not demand she shrink.